Hello, I'm Charlie Brooker and you're watching a special compilation episode of Newswipe, which starts with a brisk and, dare I say it, amusing look at how the job of TV news journalists has grown more sophisticated over the years. Early news reports were painstakingly constructed using cumbersome equipment, which meant the resulting films themselves were often quotidian, murky, shoddily framed snooze fests about brown rivers and closing factories. As technology improved, news reports became snazzier, more mobile, more visually playful. Before long, a standard news report visual language established itself, one that's immediately recognisable to anyone. Me has this report. It starts here, with a lacklustre establishing shot of a significant location. Next, a walkie-talkie preamble from the auteur, pacing steadily towards the lens, punctuating every other sentence with a hand gesture and ignoring all the pricks milling around him like he's gliding through the fucking Matrix, before coming to a halt and posing a question. What comes next? Often something like this, a filler shot designed to give your eyes something to look at while my voice babbles on about facts. Sometimes it'll slow down to a halt, turn monochrome, and some of those facts will appear one by one on the screen. This is followed by the obligatory shots of overweight people with their faces subtly framed out, after which the report is padded out with a selection of lazy and pointless vox pops.
Usually get some inane chatter from people.
I think they do have too much. I think what we want to hear is actually what's happening and not what other people think of it.
I hate these sound bites. I don't want some punter's opinion usually. No.
Another bit of dull visual abstraction to plug another gap now before the report segues gracefully into a bit of human interest courtesy of some dowdy man opening letters in a kitchen and explaining how he's been affected by the issue.
When I'm watching the news, I don't really, there's a person talking to me, telling me what's going on, and I don't really listen to what they're saying. It's just news. It's just news.
He, unfortunately, was boring, so to wake you up, this is an animated chart, this is a silhouette representing the average family, and this is a lighthouse keeper being beheaded by a laser beam. As we near the end of the report, illustrative shots of pedestrians and signs and a pipe at a window. And then the final summary, ending on a whimsical shot of something nearby, accompanied by a wry sign-off. If you're lucky, a bit of wordplay fit for a king, or in other words, a regent's treat. Charlie Brooker, Newswipe, London. Snow is a substance that falls from the sky on occasion. Here's how the news covered it this year. Temperatures across the land plunged to Hollyoaks IQ level, and Nick Griffin's dream of an all-white Britain was finally realised. The rolling networks covered it in much the same way they'd cover an alien invasion. They rapidly dispatched journalists to all 18 corners of the nation, where they stood around looking cold and uncomfortable, a bit like hungry homeless people forlornly staring through the window of an upmarket restaurant, a diner sitting indoors in the warmth. You could be forgiven for thinking that snow was a brand new, never-before-seen phenomenon. Sky helpfully explained where it came from for the benefit of dimbo-dumbos.
To have snow, the layers of the atmosphere below cloud level must be cold enough to keep the flakes from melting.
We were also shown that snow is a cold, white, watery powder which can, in large quantities, render roads impassable and make pavements more slippery than usual. Mainly, though, we learned that snow is a disloyal, deceitful substance responsible for causing conditions that can only be described as treacherous.
Treacherous conditions on the roads as even tractors battle with the ice.
The few cars that did brave it, the going was treacherous.
Minor roads continue to be treacherous ice.
Meanwhile, back in the Kingdom of Narnia, the State of Britain's Slippery Pavements was providing bulletins with plenty of tittersome you've-been-framed style slapstick.
This spot in Bristol claimed 2 victims in very quick succession.
All they had to do was pop a camera next to an icy bit of pavement, hit record, sit back and let the hilarity commence.
It's still dangerous for Dublin pedestrians.
He's probably in hospital now. Slippery pavements were a huge concern for many journalists as they pandered to some of the moaniest people in Britain.
The pavement should be gritted like the roads. People leave their cars at home because they can't get off their drives and so forth and so on. They must be gritted like the roads.
Last year during a cold snap, the news largely contented itself with showing viewers snowy shenanigans. There was still plenty of that this time, and very charming it was too, but overall the emphasis was firmly on the negative.
More schools are out now the snow puts A-levels and GCSE exams at risk. Record demand for gas and electricity strains supplies and pushes up prices. We explore how much the appalling weather will cost you.
Yes, to the miserable newsmongers, the snowfall was little more than a collection of new things to worry about. They worried whether shopkeepers would run out of bread and pastries.
Last packet of croissants. Just got a few of the bits of normal Kingsmill stuff.
They worried whether their viewers knew how to defrost a frozen pipe.
Basically, once you locate the pipe, just turn the hairdryer on.
They even worried whether baboons could comprehend what was happening.
It's a shame we can't talk to the animals and tell them what all this cold, white stuff is.
No, it isn't.
Largely, though, they worried about the supply of grit.
We're in big problems with grit.
They were obsessed with the notion we might run out of grit, thereby killing everyone in Britain.
The news went live to every variety of gritting depot you could imagine.
There were boring gritting depots, dull gritting depots, tedious gritting depots, underwhelming gritting depots, undermanned gritting depots, manned gritting depots, indoor gritting depots, outdoor gritting depots, murky gritting depots, sexy gritting depots. Everywhere you looked, the news was taking it up the gritter. No wonder they lost all sense of perspective.
With more snow and ice forecast, is Britain sliding toward chaos?
While the reporters stood around looking miserable, concerned and serious, real people were having a laugh. They were frolicking, tumbling, sledging and arsing around in the background, precisely the sort of frivolity Alistair Stewart has no time for.
The bad weather has indeed brought great acts of humanity, but as you just saw, it's also been an excuse for spectacular stupidity.
With its doomy mantra of treacherous conditions, chaotic roads, perilous pavements, arctic winds and plummeting mercury, the news did its melodramatic best to turn the winter wonderland into a story of death from the skies.
It was a tale of woe, peril and treachery the general public just weren't buying.
What about this travel chaos, the misery across Britain, snowbound Britain? Doesn't matter, does it?
The beginning of 2010 was dominated by the tragic earthquake in Haiti. We took a look at how the news covered it. Recently, the news has been filled with scenes of unimaginable horror and unbearable suffering. On the whole, the reporters themselves have been remarkably stoic in the face of events that would traumatise anyone. Some actively stepped in, leading to astonishing scenes like this, in which CNN health correspondent and neurosurgeon Sanjay Gupta cared for an injured baby in the street.
Modern news always needs to fashion events into a compelling narrative, and the Haiti story was no different.
Once it had shown us distressing scenes of overrun hospitals and rubble for several nights, it needed a fresh angle.
And so began the search for signs of conflict.
Obviously, a massive aid effort organised at short notice in a country whose infrastructure has been destroyed is going to be a logistical nightmare, and there was much coverage criticising the slow distribution of aid. But one of the things holding up the aid was the fear of violence, which the news also seemed fascinated by. The moment footage of sporadic but inevitable scuffles arrived, it was seized on as evidence that the whole of Haiti was about to descend into barbarism.
But with aid struggling to get through, the country is spiralling out of control.
Haiti now is not just a tinderbox of simmering desperation and anxiety. It's possibly just one step from something very ugly indeed.
At times the news seemed to frame the threat of violence not as a possibility in any society that's hit by a massive disaster, but as something unique to Haiti itself.
There's this ugly undercurrent, sadly, within Haitian history, which has the ability to turn. It has the ability to quite literally fight for survival. Hence, you're seeing not just doctors and aid workers on the streets, but riot police too.
The ugly undercurrent in Haitian history presumably distinguishes it from Britain, a nation whose own history consists of millennia of uninterrupted peace. Still, whatever, here's some angry foreigners.
What he says is hard to understand. It almost doesn't matter.
If you say so.
Sky occasionally seemed curiously disapproving of people forced to scavenge for anything they could find.
They scramble over an assault course of destruction to get at anything they can. Watch this. And this. Perhaps the US military should. They don't seem to think there's a problem.
Yeah, well, maybe they've got a clearer idea of the bigger picture than you have. Just a thought.
In fairness, dislocation could be a factor here. The reporter wasn't in Haiti, but in Britain, revoicing images seen on a monitor.
Images are always open to interpretation. Take this shot from another Sky News report.
These people aren't even vainly hoping for food. They're fighting over cardboard boxes to use as shelter.
Are they fighting, or are they throwing the boxes to try and break and flatten them to use as shelter and sunscreens, as we saw them doing in other reports? Check out the guy in the green t-shirt and his mate in the stripy blue top. They're clearly having a laugh batting these boxes around. Surely that's the very definition of being good-natured in a crisis. Sky weren't the only ones to focus on the violence. On the BBC's News at 10, George Alagaya stood live in the street to say,
There have been increasing signs of tension and anger on the streets here, but I think to call it all criminality or looting, I think that would be an exaggeration.
But apparently reporter Matt Fry hadn't got that memo.
Looting is now the only industry here, and this is the new rush hour of Port-au-Prince. Anything will do as a weapon. A hacksaw, a stick, and of course all the machetes and guns that you can't see. It's just a foretaste of things to come.
The occasionally feverish tone of some of the coverage angered DJ and world music guru Andy Kershaw so much he wrote a furious article for the Independent newspaper about it, accusing the media of treating the Haitians like savages. Perhaps surprisingly, some of the most measured comments about the use of violent footage came from Fox News.
We've seen video of sporadic violence, but you know, the camera can sometimes enlighten us and it can sometimes distort the truth.
Yes, there are these isolated incidents of violence and the cameras tend to gravitate towards those and highlight them, magnify them because of that. The people of Haiti really are dealing with this with an admirable dignity and sense of calm.
Just to be clear, the vast majority of BBC, ITN and Sky's coverage of the disaster has been exemplary. They also undoubtedly helped raise a lot of money by repeatedly plugging the appeal details. Everywhere you looked there was a message telling you to call DEC. It was a bit like looking at post-it notes on Ant's fridge. Speaking of aid, in the wake of any major catastrophe, people ask why God didn't intervene. This time, however, Sky were there to capture the glitzy moment. God himself turned up and announced he was going to do something about it.
I don't know who's available, but I will get a record out within 7 to 10 days.
ITN feverishly watched as Simon Cowell assembled a charity single after someone less powerful than himself.
Some bloke called Gordon Brown, apparently, asked him to help out.
We were told an impressive roster of top stars, including Jalus and Lion Girl, would appear on the single, although Sky's Cade Burley seemed most excited at the prospect of one phallocentric performer sticking his oar in.
Nothing like a bit of Roddy, so...
The song picked was R.E.M's Everybody Hurts, a soaring and soulful number about the possibility of hope, but a choice that caused heated debate on the set of Live from Studio 5.
The song, it's quite deep, isn't it? It's quite...
I
thought it might have been more of a uplifting, kind of like inspirational kind of song.
What, something like Come On Eileen, yeah?
By the time they put all the footage and that on it, it must probably make you cry, wouldn't it?
Yeah, probably will.
I think it's a little bit too sad.
How can it be too sad, though?
But it's such a sad thing that's going on. I think perhaps people need something a little bit uplifting, a little bit inspiring to say, you know, we can get through this, we're going to help out and all come together. And instead, I'm just like, God, it's just so depressing, really.
God, it is depressing. Oh, wait! Look, don't miss Joe Swash!
Joe Swash, there he is, hello!
While the children debated Simon's song choice, across the pond, even bigger stars than Joe Swash were gathering for a glittering live 2-hour telethon. The lineup included literally every musician you could ever want to hear, and Sting. Hollywood did its bit too. Brad Pitt beamed down looking like a man from the future. In fact, the cream of Movieland was there, manning the most star-studded call centre in history. There was Steven Spielberg off Jurassic Park, he was there. Pretty Woman, Julia Roberts. Even Taylor Swift off the VMA Awards.
Hello, this is Taylor Swift.
Oh, yo, Taylor, I'm really happy for you. I'ma let you finish, but Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time.
One of the dominating news themes of 2009 was the recession, which, as we all know, is now completely over. Sky News got plenty of mileage out of it, literally, when they sent one of their stars on an investigative bike ride around the UK. It looked like this. Finance and transport, and Sky News' Dermot Murnahan traverses the southwest of England on a bike, seeking out tales of financial woe in a series of reports called, amazingly, The Economic Cycle. Apart from getting a sore arse, he found plenty of sorrowful and jobless real people to talk to in what was surely designed to be the most heart-tugging reportage of the year.
Trouble is, he didn't always seem to find quite as much financial misery as he wanted.